proven in multiple researches that people with a very strong religious and spiritual belief system are actually more resistant to stresses in life, and they have more higher immune function. Right, but there is a critical balance in terms of how strong those belief systems are, since fanaticism or fundamentalism, like how rigidly you hold your religious belief systems, tend to also skew you towards, having a lot of mental health as well as physical difficulties.
Good day to all of our viewers here at ASCENIOR Fireside Chat. I'm very happy that you have remained loyal to our series of vlogs here at ASCENIOR. And I'm also very happy that I am once again with my very beautiful co-hosts here. We have the co-founders of ASCENIOR. We have Lev and we also have Ilan. Ilan and Lev, how are you?
Thank
So
you so
yeah, I'm
much. Good
good. Yeah,
day.
good here. Despite we
Yes.
have MECQ here. Okay, starting
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
August 1. Okay.
So how's
Mhm.
everything there? How's everything in Pagadian, Surbab, and in Cebu, Ilan?
well, here in Pagadian City, I'm very proud to say that Pagadian City is the capital of Western Mindanao
Mm-hmm.
region. It's now the official regional seat, regional
Oh.
center. It has been transferred from Zamboanga City.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
here in
Mm-hmm.
Cebu, we still have few adjustments again because of MECQ, and but uh, life must go on.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. That's true.
That
That's true.
reminds
And
me of a song. That
what is
reminds me
that
of a
song?
Okay.
song by Leanne
Yeah.
Rhymes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Before
And
we
yes.
digress further,
Uh-huh,
we
uh-huh.
are going to be having our first lifelong learning course very soon. And this is a different course from our master classes that we have
Yes,
conducted in
yes.
the past.
Mhm.
So perhaps Lev can introduce to our listeners what's the difference between the master class, the lifelong learning classes, and the other trainings that ASENIOR has for our learners, for our viewers. Lev,
Yes,
can you please
yes.
do the honors?
So when we started a senior, so we conceptualized this ALA or a senior learning academy, which of course promotes lifelong learning. And under ALA, we have educator webinar series. So we're doing this once a month, mini pocket or pocket webinars for our educators. We're offering this for free. And also, just last July 17,
Mhm.
we started our first masterclass. So when we say masterclass, so this is ano po siya, longer than, of course, the pocket webinar. So it's normally 3 hours
Mhm.
every weekend. So the last one, we had it from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, and
Okay.
it's highly interactive with breakout
Mm.
sessions. So merong mga
Mhm.
practical exercises and discussions among the webinar participants and the masterclass coach. And ano
Mhm.
po, very diverse po yung mga topics natin dito because we also actually ask our educators, we actually encourage them to suggest topics, especially relevant topics. Now,
Mhm.
aside from our pocket webinar and our masterclass, we are also launching our online lifelong learning course. And Ellen, do the honors of introducing our special
Yeah,
guest.
yes, Lev. I'm very proud to introduce to you our resource speaker for our course, lifelong course, and he is a psychotherapist, and he is also one of my role models in terms of clinical practice. He has a lot of experience, has wide, extensive experience in psychotherapy, and I'm so glad that we are able to contact him and with this online course because he's a pioneer in the online course.
Mm.
And so I'm going to introduce Dr. Tyler Ong. Sir?
Well,
How's
Dr.
Hi.
how's
Tyler.
there? Oh, how's MECQ life there?
Hi, Doc
Fine.
Tyler.
Surviving.
Mhm.
So, Doc Tyler is based in Cebu, right?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
in
yes.
Cebu.
So basically, our first online course is yeah, it is offered for those who are taking up master's degree or PhD in clinical psychology, who are also in the practice of yeah, in the clinical practice. But this can also be offered to all who are interested with the title of the course is Psychology of Religion and Spirituality. And Dr. Tyler Ong would give us like a description about this course, sir.
Mhm. Right. Okay. So the course is about generally how we apply the study of psychology of religion and spirituality to mental health. So since, as Elan mentioned, this was originally conceived of as a offering for masteral and doctoral students taking up clinical psychology. It's more of how you can introduce the findings in the researches from psychology of religion and spirituality to your practice ethically and professionally. But for the average person, the lay person, you can also take some information here and uh, sort of create a self-care routine based on religion and spirituality of what works and its impact on mental health.
The
So, it is,
concept
Kind of.
of
yeah. Yes, sir, Bob.
the concept of self-help and mental health has been a buzz nowadays, especially because again of the pandemic. And it's only very recently that the concept of mental health has come to light. And even if it has been discussed a lot of times, many people still do not necessarily understand the concept of mental health. In fact, just recently, I think you may have heard of Simone Biles, who decided not to participate in the all-around gymnastics in the Olympics because of mental health, and also there was this Japanese American athlete who decided to forego the I think one of the tournaments because of the issue of mental health. Now, even athletes suffer some issues with mental health, but there are some people who do not completely grasp the issue of mental health. So, Doc, perhaps you can discuss it for us because people do not have a very good understanding. They think that mental health lang yan, mental health na parang that's a very simple thing. But when we talk about mental health, what is it and why is it very important for us to ensure that we're able to provide self-care, self-help, and ensure mental health, good mental health?
Okay. So mental health is actually a bit of a misnomer because we only just focus on health in general. You know, we do not have the justification anymore to divide between physical health, mental health, emotional health, since every aspect of a person is continuously interacting. So you cannot
Mhm.
just say like mental health focus, right? Because ultimately what happens to your body affects your mind and vice versa. But generally, I think what people are using mental health as a term nowadays are trying to say how stable you are in terms of your feelings, the way you're thinking, that you're able to function every day and not feeling so called dark emotions, negative emotions throughout the day. Um, so I think the most objective indicator if you have this stable mental health would be that you are productive and functional, and that you can go through the day being able to take care of yourself, being able to take care of others, obviously not harming anyone, right, including yourself. Right? So mental health is particularly important nowadays because because of what I just said a while ago. If overall health is compromised, then every aspect of the person will definitively have consequences in the long run. So we have the COVID pandemic, for instance, and it's been proven it's a multi-systemic kind of virus. So we are seeing a lot of mental health issues from not just people who have had COVID, but also those who are suffering because of quarantine, because of the uncertainty, that's been happening because of the virus.
So,
Okay.
Doc
Doc,
Tyler, yeah, I have a question
I,
like Doc Tyler, yeah, connecting that to your online course. Would you
Mhm.
also be discussing like mental health benefits of spirituality?
Right.
Is that part of
Right.
that, of religion?
Yes, yes. So certainly that is part of it because it's been proven in multiple researches that people with a very strong religious and spiritual belief system are actually more resistant to stresses in life, and they have higher immune function, right? But there
Okay.
is a critical balance in terms of how strong those belief systems are, since fanaticism or fundamentalism, like how rigidly you hold your religious belief systems, tend to also skew you towards, having a lot of mental health as well as physical difficulties, like high blood pressure,
Yes.
and you're more prone to angry outbursts when that happens.
Right. Right.
yeah. And well, I think that's true, no? If one person really has a very strong spiritual or religious belief na everything is okay, things are going to be fine, to a certain extent, that lowers their perhaps blood pressure. And so in the process, at least it is not yung mental health nila is not going to be very affected, or they're able to become resilient because they're able to bounce back instead of becoming depressed because of these
Mhm.
concerns that they have.
Right, right.
And is this related to, because earlier, when we started our educator webinar series, we had this topic on mindfulness. May
Right.
connection po ba ito dito, Doc? Like,
Yes.
because you do meditation, self-reflection, I guess, right?
Right, yes. So mindfulness was originally a very religious topic. It, if we trace the first scientific researches on mindfulness, this was from interactions between Western scientists and the Dalai Lama. Um,
Yeah.
and that's when they started to bring in this concept into the West and started to secularize it. So they
Mhm.
stripped it of its Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist religious background to be digestible to scientists, because
Mm.
scientists have this sort of reputation, that if it's not something we can measure, we don't actually are interested in it. So over time, since they found out like there are so many benefits to mindfulness and meditation, they started to look into related practices. Right? So there are many coping mechanisms, coping skills that we teach to clients that actually have their roots in religion. Right? So the only obstacle at the moment uh, that we are facing in terms of funding for these kinds of researches is because it sounds very religious, very value laden. So nobody is interested in like attaching their names to these kinds
Mhm.
of
Oh,
studies, right?
Mhm. Mhm. I see. Okay. So, Doc, can you please discuss with us what are the physical effects of, let's say, the practice of religion as related to perhaps the mental health of the well-being, mental well-being of a person? Kasi yung sabi nga nila, if you are at peace or if you are like this, to a certain extent, yung body mo will also react
Right,
positively or negatively. So, can you
right.
please discuss that with us?
Yeah. So I'll take an example of the average Filipino to answer that question, and we'll run through that. So the idea of being at peace is actually something that is not easily achieved by the average person, even when they are performing religious rituals or participating in a spiritual practice. You know, for example, the average Filipino goes to mass every Sunday, at least pre-pandemic. Um, but they're just there because it's tradition. So you don't actually have any kind of health benefits from going into the church, you know, just singing and then kneeling and then bowing and whatever, right? So you're just there in order to participate because that's what you've been told. You don't have any mental or physical health benefits from it. So after you go through the mass or you're in the mass itself, and then we attach electrodes or take your blood sample or whatever, we don't see any change, right? And I
Right.
believe there are some studies that actually did that. So the feeling of peace, the feeling of being able to just settle into that practice is actually quite difficult to achieve since you have to be very participative. Basically, entire body and mind are into the practice, right? So let's say, for instance, if you go to church and then you participate in mass and you're fully invested in the mass, right? You're a 100% believer in the catechism, that there is meaning to this, there is purpose, right? So then the mechanism that actually creates the health benefits is more of the mindfulness as well as feeling of acceptance, the sense of acceptance and peace. So it connects, then your body responds because if you're at peace, certain neurological pathways get triggered in your brain. So parasympathetic nervous system gets activated. This is the part of our nervous system that tells us like it's fine, you know, it's okay, you can rest, you're at peace, etc. And the other side of your nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, the one that tells you you need to run or you need to fight because we have a threat, gets
Yes.
silenced, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is when blood pressure goes down, you know, your heart rate evens out.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do this consistently, then we wouldn't need a lot of anti-cholesterol pills, for example,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Of course, I'm not saying that mass is a good substitute for taking your
Yes.
medicine, you know, but it
Yes.
does help as a supplement.
Yes.
So
And
the environment where the person is in, let's say for example, because I think it would make sense now, like for example, if you are in a place wherein like you feel like you're safe, you know, so safe space for you, and then
Yes.
yung mga tipong
Yeah.
in a place where it's very welcoming, there's sense
Yeah.
of inclusivity, for example, tapos you would feel na
Right.
you are supported, yung mga ganon. So,
and I think one thing breeds to another.
mhm, mhm,
Again, we talk about the psychology of religion and spirituality. We're not just talking about religion here, but our connection to the higher being, our
mhm,
purpose
mhm.
in life, our
Mhm.
place in this world. I'm really in this particular time in my life when I'm very, very satisfied with what I'm doing. And so I'm all the time very thankful. In fact, every day I would just say every day, or sometimes when I'm alone, out of the blue, I'm just going to, I just tell myself, thank you, Lord, because I'm happy and I'm satisfied with what I'm doing right now. And because of that satisfaction, it breeds to happiness and contentment. And because I am at that level in my place in my life, and in this particular situation, that I'm satisfied, I'm calm, I'm happy, I'm able to think more creatively. So that
Mhm.
one thing, that this is really the effect of it, that if you are in this particular state of mind, one thing breeds to another, which benefits you. But again, if you are in a very toxic place, you're very toxic time in your life, and what you're thinking is all the time negative, there are some toxins in your body that are also released, and then you get angry easily, and that also has a direct effect on the quality of work that you
Right.
produce.
Yeah. So just to add in a little bit also about the discussion of community and place, that is certainly part of how religion can impact our health is through community. And the people that we know, our loved ones, are part of that religious community. We call this as the the extrinsic part of religion. So the external aspects of religion. So Catholic churches, for example, are meant to awe. So they're built always with very high ceilings, with very large kinds of naves, with acoustics involved, etc. So it is meant to provide you with a sense that there is really this higher thing inside here, and you are meant to feel small, not in a negative way, but that you have to relinquish your agency to this higher force, right? However, that does not mean that everyone accepts that kind of belief, right? So
Yes,
it depends on the person. Like for instance, people who have been abused when they were altar boys by priests, for example, any church would become a reminder of that trauma, right? While they still hold to the Catholic belief system, for instance, but actually a lot of them become very, very atheistic. Um, the fact that they can't go into church would mean like two sufferings, right? Two types of suffering. First is that since they believe that they're still Catholic, but they can't participate in this most important prayer, Mass is considered the most important prayer in the Catholic faith, then it creates frustration in them. They can't actualize their faith. And number two, it causes the traumatic memories to turn again, not even being near physically a church, just by like a visual or even thinking that I can't go to church anymore, can trigger these traumatic memories, right? And to add to that, there actually have been some studies showing that extrinsic aspects of religion are not as important as intrinsic, right? Religion, although it is debatable, depending on the context of a particular person we're talking about, right? Because extrinsic aspects of religion are highly dependent on the presence or absence of certain elements. So it's not within our control. Like, for example, yes, you like this particular church, you go to this church and you feel happy every time. But what actually makes you happy is because there are these people, your posse, for
yes,
example, who
the
go with
community
you,
there.
right? Yeah.
Right,
But if
right.
they're absent and you go by yourself, there's a significant drop in the sense of like, I'm not really invested in this ritual. So that's just something that I'd like to add.
Right. And I guess it
And these,
depends on the person's like level of spirituality, I guess. Which I believe, correct me if I'm
Mm.
wrong, Doc, yung tipong, like how you're brought up, I guess, that's one factor then.
Mm.
Yeah, like say for example, how spiritual your family is, I guess, or your household
Mm.
is,
Yes.
diba? Tapos
Yeah.
parang, ano na yun eh, like,
Right.
as you like move through life, all your experiences and everything is grounded on that. So parang
Right.
wherever you may be, kasi like for example,
Mhm.
in my own experience, like I've lived in Singapore, for example, I've lived in China, I'm here in Canada. When I was in China, talagang naghanap ako ng Catholic Church. And I was in that
Mm.
city wherein isa lang yung Catholic Church, and it's not even a church, it's just a chapel. And all of the people
Mm.
attending the Mass are all Chinese, yung mga taga
Mm.
doon talaga, and they do not speak, they say the Mass in English, but I'm still there.
Mm.
And parang yung brain
Yeah.
ko, like while they're doing the Our Father, parang memorize mo na, di ba, kung ano yung sequence.
Yes.
So parang for me, Our Father na to. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like praying on my own, sa sarili ko na lang. And then for me, parang, the connection, it matters a lot. So parang I was in this foreign country, and for me, like to feel in a way safe, I have to go there, I have to
Yeah.
be there. Yes. Uh-huh.
talking about
Yeah.
the rituals
Mhm.
that the Catholics do, that has been bashed for quite for by a lot of other people. Now they say it becomes very ritualistic and it loses its meaning, but it depends upon the person. It depends on the person, because different people react to the conduct of the rituals. Some actually, they say, even in Buddhism, for example, they have this the sound reverberates inside, and to a certain extent it also has some connection to their spirituality. The repetition, the recitation of
Yes,
certain
yes.
words also has somehow an effect on the person's mind, on the person's, let's say, spiritual being, on the mind, the peace that they are able to experience. So
Mm.
these things perhaps need further
Yeah.
discussion,
Like yung mga
but
chants, di ba? Like yung mga
yes.
chants sa meditation.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Ah,
the process, or let's say the hearing, these sounds that you repeat again and again may also have certain effects dito sa isip mo, and to a certain extent that also provides certain calmness to you.
mhm.
And when you have that
Right.
calmness within you, again, that breeds to another thing.
Yeah.
But
And
you know what?
Mhm.
These are all things that I'm quite sure Dr.
I
Tyler
love our
on
discussion. I love our
us in.
discussion. Like Len,
Yeah.
like I'm curious,
Yeah.
like when you do the chanting, why is it that people would say, okay, if you chant this, kasi meron sa YouTube you could check it out. Then when you do that, like parang it gives you a sense of parang, okay, I'm at peace. Parang there's a
Yeah.
Yes.
sense of calmness. Parang saan yun ang galing?
Could be like it helps us focus. Okay,
Mm,
it helps us into our focus because prayer, any ritual, like as what you have said, it depends on the person because it has
mhm.
something to do with our connection. Okay, connection with ourself and our the higher being, our spirituality. Like even if like we say for example we have memorized the Our Father, we have memorized the Hail Mary, and sometimes it's like
Mhm.
lip, we call this like lip prayer na lang, like that. But if we
Mhm.
tend to yeah, as what Sir Tyler had said na if we are really engrossed with it, invested with it, and we find a sense of purpose and meaning with it. So yeah, it helps us not just with our emotional aspect, psychological aspect as well. Mm.
Lev, I would just like to react to something that you mentioned a while ago, which is about the environment of the person.
Environment, yes.
If the person has a very religious family, or they really
Upbringing
have
or
a very
something. Mhm.
yes, they have a very religious upbringing, it can work both ways. It really depends upon the person, because it can work both ways, because even if you may have a family that's a very strong religious belief, but you yourself do not
Yes,
agree with
yun,
them, or
yun.
maybe to a certain extent, what you like is something that they do not like, and you end up being persecuted, even if your family is very religious, but it does not connect with you, you do not connect with what they believe in, it could
Yeah.
also work negatively.
Really important there is the experience. So
Mhm.
most of us, we are taught with regards to the ritual, more on the ritual. Like say for example, me when I was in it's kind of good, like as we go along when we reach adulthood, and then we would realize all these things. Like when we were still young, we tend to follow our parents. We go to mass, not minding what's the purpose there of going
Mm.
there. And then like me for example, early in the morning at 5 o'clock, we our mother would wake us up because we're going to pray the rosary,
The
things like
rosary.
that. And at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, it's really kind of good. And then what's the benefit of this waking up early, things like that. As and then with all these experiences hard wired in our brain
Mhm.
already, and when we reach into adulthood and we have all these learnings, we have all these things, and then sometimes there are conflictual things here. Yeah, that's
Mm.
other people will say they
Some
don't believe
people,
in.
yeah,
Yeah.
they tend to question now and nasa
Yeah.
tao talaga
And
din.
I believe all of these things are going to be clarified by Dr. Tyler Ong during his lifelong learning
Yes,
class.
I'm really
And
excited.
I
I
want
think I'm the
I want to
first one. I'm the
enroll.
first one to enroll here.
Me too.
the correlation between psychology,
Yes.
between mental health, and religion and spirituality. Dr. Tyler Ong, I'm quite sure, will be able to discuss all of these in detail, and will be able to provide will be able to allow the listeners, the viewers, the participants of this lifelong learning session to appreciate better the advantages of spirituality and religion in one's mental health.
Right.
Thank
So,
you,
Sir
Dr. Tyler
Tyler,
Ong.
yes. So, ano
Thank
pong
you.
gusto niyo pong sabihin to those who would want to enroll in the lifelong online course on the psychology of religion? Yes.
So we're gonna be really looking at things from a very analytical perspective. So it's not just a discussion about religion that you have been practicing or that you were taught as a child. So this is from a very scholarly and scientific perspective. There are no judgments or biases like religion is something that's very good or something like that. We will be discussing also negative aspects of religion as it applies to your mental health. So this is just something that is convenient for you to do because you can practice, you can um, um, uh, believe wherever, whenever. You don't need any kind of money. So especially nowadays when many people who need help can't actually access the necessary help,
Right.
and even then many people are going through existential crisis, crisis of identity. And once you have a very stable spiritual belief system, how you understand the world, yourself, your place in it, etc., it actually can solve a lot of questions in your head.
Right.
So even if you're relatively stable, you're well adjusted, just having this information from a scholarly perspective can be something that you can explore also, maybe for further studies, especially for practitioners or graduate students, or you can impart this kind of information to other people who are interested.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Tyler. Sir Bob, take it away.
Okay, so on behalf of us in your fireside chat, we would like to thank Dr. Tyler Ong. I'm quite sure all of our participants will be able to learn a lot of things from this learning experience. Dr. Tyler Ong, I look
Yes.
forward to joining your class.
Yes. Me
Yes.
too.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. And to our listeners and subscribers, Sir Bob, what do we normally say?
Yes, please
Yes.
subscribe to us in your fireside chat. I'm sorry,
Chat.
and like our Facebook Facebook page.
All right. See you everyone sa next episode po natin. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.